Hi, this is Steve Tosher with RazorGage, and today I'd like to talk about the RazorGage XT software. Here we have the RazorGage XT main screen. You can see in the upper left corner it shows the current position, the target position when you enter a position for it to go to. Here you can change it from inches to millimeters. You can see that when we change it to millimeters, what were the fraction buttons change to tenths of a millimeter. So if you want to go to 25 and 4/10 millimeters, you just do that. And if this was a real RazorGage XT, it would have already gone to that position. When you use these hotkeys, you do not have to press go after your entry. Same is true with inches. When we're in inch mode, these hotkeys change to fractions. If I want to go to 56 and 5/16, I just do that and it will already be moving. Again, when you click the fraction buttons, that clicks go for you automatically. If you just want to go to 6 inches, you have to click go. So that is most of the main screen. We have an unload button here. The RazorGage XT is used only as a stop, so after you cut your part, if it's difficult to unload and you need the RazorGage positioner to get out of the way, you click the unload button and it will back up the amount that you set in the setup screen, and we'll go to that a little bit later. But as far as the main screen, it's pretty straightforward. You basically type in the number and hit go, and the RazorGage positioner moves to that position. Okay, so here's the button that takes us to the main screen. Now if we go to the cut list screen, this is where you can create and run cut lists. The RazorGage XT has a powerful cut list utility. You can create files. You can save thousands of files on the hard drive of the RazorGage XT tablet. To do it, all you do is click Open File. And here's a cut list I have saved. I open it, and here's the cut list. So if I click a line item, the positioner will move to this length, this position, automatically. You just click the line item and it moves to that position. If I want to sort the cut list, I can sort by, you just click these headings. So if I click material, it asks me if I want to sort by material. I click yes, and it sorted it. If I want to click by sort by description, I click description, and it sorts by description. I can sort by length, and now it's longest to shortest. If I click it again, now it's longest to shortest. Before it was shortest to longest. I can sort by any of these headings. So that's real handy sometimes. Now, again, to actually use the cut list, you just click any line item. The RazorGage moves to that position. You can see we have two columns here, original quantity and remaining quantity. The original quantity never changes, but after you cut a part and you click the part cut button, you can see remaining quantity on this line item was decremented by 1. And if I get down to 0, then it won't decrement it. And it moved to the next line automatically, and it won't decrement that line anymore. If you click on a line whose quantity is 0, it says quantity is 0, do you want to add 1, meaning add 1 to the quantity and move to the position. If you click yes, it will add 1 to the quantity and move to that position. If you click no, it will just move to that position without decrementing the quantity or changing the quantity. So again, after you hit part cut, if you're on a line item, it decrements the quantity by 1. Now, suppose that your cut list is a bill of materials for a certain product that you manufacture, and you want to make, let's say you want to make 10 of them. So if you want to do that, you can click this button that says set all remaining quantity, and you can add a multiplier to the original quantity. So if I want to make 10 of these items, I'll add, now I've got 10 and I apply it. So it multiplied all the original quantities times 10, and so the remaining quantity is 40. And so if I cut these, I can cut these parts and keep track of how many I need to make all 10 of these assemblies. If I get halfway done and decide, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to do something else, I can set all remaining quantity and just apply it. In that case, I was multiplying them times 1, and now they're all back the way they were. So that's kind of a handy feature. Again, we already clicked Open File. Now to create a new file, I click Create File. I enter a name for the file, and I will just call it Test Demo. So now I'll make the first line, I'll put in a length of 8, a quantity of 7, a name, I'll call it a style, and a description, we'll say oak. So there is that line item. Looks like I should have put oak in under this column and style in under this one. So I'm going to edit that line, and I'll put in oak here, and style here. So that is how you add a line to a cut list and how you edit that line. I can delete a line just by selecting it and clicking Delete Line. Now if I want to add another line, it's the same process. And I'll call this a rail. So pretty straightforward. Now when I'm done and I want to save it, I just click Exit Edit, and now here's my cut list. If I click Open File, you'll see that it was automatically saved. So now I have two files. And if I click Standard Cut List and open it, there's the cut list that I had before. And if I click Open File to Test Demo, now here is the file that I just created. Again, if I want to edit this cut list, I click Edit List. Now when the screen turns red, I'm in edit mode. I click a line, edit that line, or I can add a line, or I can delete a line. So that is the cut list feature. Okay, now the next feature on the RazorGage XT software are the preset stops. These are hotkeys that you can program to go to a position, and you can have as many as you want. You can display them in grid view, like this is shown here, or I can change it to list view. In list view, if there were so many of them that they went off the screen, you could just swipe and scroll through them. The same is true in grid view. It's just that in grid view, you can change the grid size and make them bigger if you have just a few buttons, or smaller if you have a lot of buttons and you want to see as many as possible on the screen and sacrifice the button size. You know, they're going to get smaller the more you can view. Now to add a new button, I just click Add New Item, put in a length 5.438, and the name, we'll just call it Tom. And there it is. I can also remove that item. If I want to edit it, I just click it, edit it, and I'll just click here, and I'll change that to want instead of like. So that's how you edit, add, and remove hotkeys. And again, if I change to list view, it shows them this way. And you just touch them and they go to the position that you want to go to. In grid view, I just touch that line, that button, and it moves to that position. So that is how the preset stops or hotkeys work. If you do happen to change to metric mode, it doesn't convert these in metric mode, when you push this button, it's going to go to 64.563 millimeters. In inch mode, it's going to go to 64.563 inches. So if you want metric and inch hotkeys, you will need to do that when you create them. Put in maybe a description in the name that indicates whether it's in millimeters or inches, and then put in the appropriate number for the units that you want to be in when you use it. Okay, so now we've gone through the main screen, the cut list screen, the preset screen, and last but not least is the setup screen. Here is where you set all the parameters. The scale factor, this is the counts per inch. You would adjust this if, as the positioner moved further and further out, if the parts were longer or shorter, the bigger number you type in, you would adjust the scale factor. This is where you change the stroke. You shouldn't have to do that. It should come to you with the correct number in there. Here is where you can change the speed, and I just do that by hitting the minus button to change it to 12. I click the plus, changed it to 13. Same is true on all these variables. Accel, decel, this stands for acceleration. This is how fast it gets up to speed, and these units are in inches per second per second. So the speed is 13 inches per second, and if the accel, if I set it to 13 inches per second, that means it's going to take 1 second to accelerate 13 inches per second. And since our speed is 13, it's going to take 1 second to get up to speed. Same is true with decel. You won't use the break-in button. Home offset is the distance from the end of the stop to the saw when the machine is at home. So in this case, it shows it at 0.005. So that means when the razor gauge is done homing, the end of the stop extension is 5 thousandths away from the blade. So it's really close. If you adjusted that stop back a little ways, then you would adjust the home offset. The unload is related to that button we talked about at the very beginning, the main screen, this unload button here. When you click it, the razor gauge positioner is going to move back away from the saw X amount. This is that amount. If you want to change it, you just click it and adjust these numbers. Move to lower limit does exactly that. When you click it, it moves, the razor gauge positioner moves to the lower limit. Click this one and it moves to the higher limit. Click this button and it will home the razor gauge. And then there is this button, my parts are incorrect. So this is if you're cutting parts and your parts are incorrect and you don't want to decide whether it's a scale factor thing or a home offset thing, you just click this button. It says if short and long parts are all off by the same amount, use this wizard. Otherwise, use factory calibration. So if short parts and long parts are all off by the same amount, I will click this, use this wizard button, and it will take me through a step-by-step process. If short parts are on target but long parts are not, then I would use the factory calibration. And this says this process must be carried out correctly in order to avoid serious inaccuracy issues. Go back to the main screen and using the razor gauge as a stop, cut the shortest part possible and the longest part possible. Use calipers to measure the short part and a tape measure to measure the longest part. Enter the intended and actual lengths on the next page. So in this, what it's saying is you'd go back to the main screen, use the positioner to cut a short part and a long part, then come back to this screen, hit next, and then enter the short part intended length, short part actual length, long part intended length, and long part actual length. And then when you get done, the machine will be calibrated. So those are all the buttons on the setup screen. There is the tool safe enable if you a RazorGage XT does not have a tool safe at this time. Invert motion direction, again on the XT, one doesn't have to be concerned with that either. So I hope you've learned something from this little demo. If you have questions, call us at RazorGage at 515-232-3188. We sure appreciate your interest in our product, and let us know if we can be of further assistance. Thanks and have a great day.